I'm Erika Trautman. I am Senior Product Manager for Google Drive, and hopefully you're here for new workforce features in Google Drive, plus an Airbus case study. I will be joined on stage today by Andrew Plunkett from Airbus, Jerome Levadoux from DocuSign, Anthony Petro and Jason Trent from K2, and Brad Orluk from Nintex. So I think people are finding their seats. Why do companies care about enterprise content management? Why do we invest here? I think it's because we have this dream that through the magic of technology, we're going to be able to unlock all of our company's data, which is really the aggregate knowledge of all of your employees, that everyone in the organization knows exactly what they need to know, when they need to know it, and that you enable and facilitate productivity and innovation. It's really actually a pretty inspiring dream, and enterprise content management systems have invested a lot of features in chasing that dream. And the reality is they do a lot poorly. Here's the problem. They're just way too complicated. Enterprise content management systems are so difficult to use that they never succeed in becoming that neural hub for your company's data and your employees' knowledge. You can take sharing as an example. Sharing is so difficult that employees look for shadow IT solutions just to circumvent the friction. We know this because Drive is often the solution that they choose. Or you can think about workflows. The workflow systems that come with ECMs don't really meet the needs of most enterprise. So business leads are forced to find alternative solutions. They create duplicate copies, upload those into their preferred workflow providers, and aren't able to leverage what the ECM has to offer. How about search? Well, search only works within the ECM repository. And since you've got this problem of not every document makes it to the ECM, and you've got duplicates all over the place, you know what people do? They make local copies that they store on their devices just so that they can get their work done, which further exacerbates the problem. Okay, well, how about metadata? If you want to apply metadata to your documents to help with organization and categorization, you can do that if the documents made it to the ECM. But you have to apply all of that metadata manually, and that becomes really onerous and overwhelming, and the data quickly becomes stale. So you wind up with customization that takes more work than it's worth, metadata that doesn't organize, search that doesn't find, and loads of features that go unused. So what started as this really nice dream to centralize and streamline all of your company's information becomes just another technology hurdle your employees have to overcome to get their jobs done. Drive works hard to be different. We want to be simple and delightful to use so that your employees succeed in uploading their content to Drive, collaborating, sharing, creating workflows, and finding what they're looking for. Hopefully that all sounds nice. But we know that if you've got content on a legacy ECM, it can seem pretty daunting to think about how you go from that tangled world to a more simple world, which is why I'm incredibly excited to invite Andrew Plunkett, VP of Digital Workplace, to the stage from Airbus. He's going to talk to us about how Airbus is leveraging this opportunity. I'm going to awkwardly walk in front of you here.
That's all right. I'll take the clicker.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Erika. So yeah, my name's Andrew Plunkett. I'm the head of Digital Workplace at Airbus. I joined just about last May. And I was actually reflecting on the way here that it's actually been a year since we actually made a decision to go with G Suite. So the decision with Airbus, I mean, most people in this room probably know our products, probably been on one of our products. But as a company, you know, we've been pushing the boundary in terms of digital transformation for a number of years. And I think we've had a number of really good successes. But what really has become, you know, what became very obvious is that for us to truly differentiate and truly be successful as we go forward, we really needed to think about what made us successful in the past. And a lot of that was around collaboration, how we share ideas, how we share innovation, and work together across our supply chain. So it was a really top-down decision, and we were looking very much for the tools, the technology that was going to take us forward as an organization. So we set really 4 objectives for our organization, of which G Suite was a key element in the end in terms of our choice. So the first of these was really the tool sets and our catalyst, driving our catalyst for change, challenging our processes, challenging the way we work with tools today, and actually looking at how do we reinvent ourselves using new tools and new technologies. The second was around simplifying and strengthening our data security and being much smarter about how we managed our information, and really getting on top of how do we manage, protect, and secure our most vital assets as well. And then really the key drivers for us were around how do we connect our workforce, how do we connect our people, how do we share information between, say, one of our plants that builds aircraft in Hamburg and also one of our plants that builds aircraft in Toulouse. What if they were having the same challenges? How do we find that information? How do we surface that information? And these are the things that really drove us towards our choice for G Suite. And we started the program it was round about the beginning of May last year, and we've just sort of been working through and working quite fast on this. But what have been the challenges? So if we think about Airbus as an organization, we're not just commercial aircraft, we've also got a big helicopters division, and we also work in defense and space. It's a very broad product set. All our parts of our organization have different requirements, different needs for data, and also different sort of ways that we need to manage the data. The second sort of key challenge for us is a complex supply chain. We have anywhere between, at any one time, between 5,000 and 7,000 partners that we work with in our supply chain. If you also think that a number of our aircraft, the parts run into the millions, and some of those are all manufactured by different companies. So, how do we trade information? How do we work with these suppliers and actually find the data and share the data and the information with all these suppliers? Our third challenge, particularly for sort of defense and space and defense-regulated defense pieces, are we work in a very highly regulated industry. I mean, we are absolutely at the top in safety, security, but we also work with governments who have very strict rules about our data, how we manage the data, things like export control, but also how we manage our personal data and our responsibilities to people within the European Union under legislation such as GDPR. And then one of our biggest challenges has been the fact that we actually have a lot of existing data today, anywhere between about 1 billion and 2 billion documents sitting, that we now need to move and actually look at how we're going to move those into the cloud, but doing that in a very safe, secure, manageable way, and actually using that as the catalyst for how we're going to manage and then build further information going forward. So if I think about our requirements, so the first of these is really about metadata. So, today we have parts of our organization, such as engineering, who probably use to the extreme certain things of metadata in SharePoint. There are other parts of our organization that probably don't use metadata at all. But for us, what we actually need is to get to a point where we're all using standardized, simplified metadata that allows us to manage and surface information in a much better way than we're probably doing today. There's a huge amount of data sitting in our data stores and data banks. How do we surface that? How do we bring that forward? How do we get it into the hands of the people who are designing our aircraft, who are building our supply chains, building and manufacturing in our plants? The second key thing for us is interoperability with Microsoft. I mean, a large part of our information today is contained within Microsoft documents. We're obviously moving from Office into Google, and there's a key challenge there about how do we maintain and use that information, but now use it with the G Suite tools. But the second piece for us is about our supply chain. So, while it is a strong desire for us that everyone is going to collaborate within G Suite tools, there is still a need to maintain a certain operability with Microsoft. And in areas like our defense and space, where we have to maintain an on-premise solution, we are still having to use Microsoft. So there's a very key piece about how do we make sure that we've got that full interoperability going forward. The third is the search and organization. Again, I say we've got billions of documents, but how do we surface those in a much more effective way? How do we organize that, and how do we find things in a much better way than we do today? The fourth is really about classification. So I mentioned before about the regulation, how we manage our documents, how we protect our documents, and actually we don't want to leave it to the individual within our organization to actually make the decisions about whether this is a classified document, whether this needs to be specifically filed because it contains PII type information. We want to actually use smart things to automate and drive this classification, so we're taking the risk away from the individual. And then the last thing is, obviously with the number of documents, the number of workflows we have, we're a very broad organization of around 150,000 people, huge number of workflows that we have today, but going forward, we want to simplify, streamline, and really drive that simplification of our workflows going forward. Thank you.
Take this one. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I think you did a great job of outlining some key requirements, what our expectations should be for a modern content platform, and I'm going to go through each of these. But the first thing I want to touch on is the migration process. because that's the first step that companies contemplating moving from a legacy system to something like Drive need to consider. If you were at this conference 2 years ago, you may have heard that we made an announcement that we acquired a company called AppBridge, which was the leading provider for migration services. We're excited to introduce you to the new incarnation of AppBridge, which is now available in beta, G Suite Migrate. So this is a self-serve migration tool that helps you plan for your migrations, understand what some of the watch points might need to be. It's fully supported by G Suite Global Support, and it comes with G Suite Business and Up and Drive Enterprise. So if you need more information about that, you can come find us. All right, so cleaner metadata. I was really struck as Andrew and I were preparing for this session how much thought Airbus is actually putting into the process of migration and how they're going to use that as an opportunity to get a handle on this 1 to 2 billion documents. Some of those will be archived, others will be living, breathing documents that their employees will use every day. And to do that, they need to be organized, which brings us to our first requirement, cleaner metadata. The metadata beta is now live. I challenge you to say that 10 times fast. Super excited, it's rolling out now, so if you want to get in there and test it out, you can take down this URL and try out the metadata yourself. Airbus has been a great partner for us in developing this feature, and we would like to show you how it works. So I'd like to introduce Hody Myers, product manager, to the stage. The lowercase h is intentional, just so you know. I'll stand over here.
Thank you, Erika. As Andrew said, metadata is amazing at organizing and classifying files, but for it to be really effective and powerful, you have to have unified taxonomies, and it has to be easy to apply metadata to files. So let me show you how we do it in Drive, how we achieve this in Drive. Can we switch to the demo? This is Drive, as you know it. What's new is that now in your files, you have a new section here called Properties, where you can apply metadata. Metadata in Drive is organized into categories that describe the content of a file. And then each category has type properties that are relevant for this kind of category, for this kind of file. So for example, here you have meeting notes, they have a point of contact, and they have a project that's related to it. If you have a file, for example, here we have a budget that is not categorized yet, you can apply category, let's say budget, and as you can see, these fields are typed. So it's not just a string, they're strongly typed fields. So if I search for a person, it's actually a person, not an email address or a string, and we have a pre-selected list of projects here. Now, let's take a look at this file. This is an invoice, and we don't have an invoice category yet. This user, Susan, she's actually a Team Drive manager for this Team Drive, so she can select which categories to use in this Team Drive. She can either create new categories or she can select from existing ones. So here we see all the categories that she has currently available. Budget and contract were created by admins, and the admins decide that they should be available in all files to all users in this domain. And someone has already created an invoice category, that's a lucky coincidence, with these properties. So Susan can now say she wants to have invoice available in this Team Drive. And now when you click on this invoice, she can, in fact, apply this new invoice category to this file. She can say what the amount is, and especially what the due date is. It was actually yesterday, I'm a little behind on this. And Susan is responsible. And while I type this, all of this gets saved automatically and instantly. So if you go away and do something else, or if you click on another file or you get distracted, you never have to worry about saving any of this information. All gets saved instantly. And the real power of metadata, of course, is in then searching over this. So with our new advanced search, I can say search for example, all invoices. And because these invoices or the categories are managed per Team Drive but shared between Team Drives, by searching for invoice, let's say all invoices that are due this month, I can search across Team Drives. So if I search this, you can see the results are from different Team Drives. So I have one from the Team Drive I just worked on, this is a file I just modified, but I also get results from other Team Drives that use the same category. And simple and intuitive.
Can we switch back to the slides, please? Great. Thank you, Hody. All right, so this brings us to interoperability with Microsoft. Interoperability is just a really big word that means designed to work together. And we work really hard to make Drive work seamlessly with Microsoft, because the whole point is to empower people to collaborate regardless of the productivity suite that they're using. We know that this matters because, as Andrew described, customers have these internal coexistence needs and these external coexistence needs. You know, thinking about the migration process, you might not want to migrate all of your employees all at once in a huge, high-stakes, all-or-nothing migration. You might want to stage it. So maybe your marketing department is already using Drive, but your legal department not quite yet, but those teams still need to be able to work together. And when you have 5,000 to 7,000 partners at any given time, some of them will always be using Microsoft. So interoperability really matters. The cool thing is that we can provide interoperability while also solving some of those legacy ECM headaches. So who remembers this problem? Okay, I've got my Word document. I'm emailing to my boss, quarterly report. He's like, great, it's final. We're done. Good, go home. I'm like, whoops, there's a mistake. I've got final V2. With traditional ECMs, the final file struggle is real. And this happens because sharing is difficult, so people revert to sending emails back and forth to each other, and it can create a real organizational nightmare. With Drive, this doesn't happen, because you have a single canonical version of that Word document that lives in the cloud, that's accessible on any device. And if you're using Office as your primary productivity suite, it's easy to edit and collaborate on Office files using Drive FileStream. So Drive FileStream, for those of you who don't know, is our native desktop syncing client. It's at home on the desktop, so you can see in this example, it's mounting right there at J:. So maybe you left work on Friday and J: was referencing your file server, your admin does a migration, you come in on Monday, your files are right there at J:, except now they're pointing to Google Drive. Another cool thing about Drive FileStream is it doesn't download all of your data natively onto your computer. You just browse your file structure. When you need a document, it's downloaded on demand, which saves tons of disk space. But we know that sometimes you're going to need to have documents that are offline by default. We make it really easy to make those available offline. For example, if you're on an airplane, I'm sure that Airbus always has flawless Wi-Fi, but if not, there's a backup. And it's not just Word documents. Generally available later this month, you can edit Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides offline in your Chrome browser. I was playing around with this on the flight out. This is really, really fun if you like the editors. Now, for those of you who are security conscious, this section might make you a little bit nervous, because what happens when you have a whole lot of data downloaded onto your machines? Those machines can be lost or stolen. That can create a security risk. Not one that you have to worry about. Generally available now, Drive FileStream is available in the Google Device Management Console. So what this means is that admins can log into the Google Device Management Console, see who's got what data downloaded on what devices, what version they're running, and a whole lot more. And if you see something that's a little fishy, or that laptop has been lost or stolen, you can block that device with a single click, and the data is wiped in seconds. It's really, really fast. So hopefully that lowers your blood pressure a little bit if you're very security conscious. But of course, all the security features in the world don't make a difference if people just circumvent the system, right? That gets us back to the shadow IT problem. So we want to make it very easy for users to get documents to Drive, which is why you can add documents directly from Gmail or Outlook to Drive, or insert from Drive into Gmail or Outlook, complete with the permission checks to make sure whoever you're emailing has access to the document. So this saves you from that old dance you used to have to do, where you get the email, download the document, upload to the repository. Need to attach something, download from the repository, upload to your email. You don't have to do that anymore. So this should make it easier to use. But of course, Google is all about collaboration. This is one of our huge value propositions. We want to bring the magic of Google Collaboration to Microsoft files. If you were in the collaboration session yesterday, you heard my colleague say, we want to make Microsoft better on Google than Microsoft on Microsoft. This is that effort. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples of features that get us there. So the first is Realtime Presence, and this launched last year. So what this does, if you're using Drive FileStream for for Office, for Word, PowerPoint, Excel, et cetera, and someone else, say Hody is in that document, and I open it, I don't want to create a version conflict. So one answer might be to lock you out. That's not what we do. Instead, we notify you. We say, you should wait to edit. Hody's in the document. That way you can collaborate with Hody without having to be locked out of the file. If a version conflict does occur, there's a really easy dialogue to resolve the conflict. Also launched last year is commenting on Office files and PDFs. So in the Drive preview. So if you open a Word file in Drive on your phone, you can select a section of text and add comments. Those comments are then natively integrated into Microsoft or the PDF. If your Microsoft user opens Word, adds a new comment, that will appear in Drive preview. So that makes a nice complete round trip. And announced at this conference, native editing in Google Docs for Office files, generally available, I think, like next week, rolling out now. So watch this. This looks like Google Doc, but it's not. It is a Word file. You can see up in the upper left there, the file extension. This is a Word file, but we're treating it exactly like a Google Doc. You've got real-time collaboration going on, all of the power behind the editors, the machine learning, the grammar, all of that's accessible, and all changes are saved automatically and visible to your Office users. So this really is true Google collaboration for Microsoft files. All right, but what about collaborating with someone who doesn't have a Google account at all, like lawyer@lawfirm.com or keypartner@outlook.com? We're making it easy to share with anyone with PIN-verified visitor sharing. So here you can see we've got Andrew at Outlook.com. We want to invite him to collaborate on a document. We're going to share with him. When he receives the invite, Google's going to send him a quick check. Hey, Andrew, want to make sure it's you. Please verify your email address. Go grab that verification code. And before you know it, he's in the document collaborating with all the other Google users, just like a full team member. He can edit. He can comment, and all of his activity is logged. All right. So you can expect us to continue to invest in interoperability with Microsoft. We know that it's a really important feature for our customers. So this brings us to our next requirement, which is better search and organization. And when we think about search and organization, this is really about making sure that the right people have the right access to the right content at the right time. And there's sort of three different tools we can use to enable that. The first is traditional search, right? So search by creator, search by file type, search by keyword. The second are organizational tools to help you visually organize your files. So think file, folder structures, and that sort of thing. And then the third, we're Google. Can you guess what it might be? Machine learning, of course. How many times has that been said at this conference? Yesterday, we announced the priority page. This is really cool. It's a new homepage in Google Drive, which uses artificial intelligence to surface the most relevant content that needs your attention. That's that top bar. So it figures things out like you've got a meeting coming up, and this was the attachment. You probably need to see it. All of your colleagues are collaborating on this document, and you might want to comment here. This one's waiting for your approval, and there's a deadline. So this is like the immediate stuff you need to attend to. And then it curates recommended workspaces that provide quick access to important documents along the bottom there. We know that the average worker uses like 10 to 20 documents in a given week, and those are sort of temporary clusters of files. Well, we can help suggest curated workspaces for you and get those documents right in front of you so that you can stay both informed and focused. And we're Google, it's machine learning. You bet we will keep investing in machine learning. But let's not shortchange human organization, which is why we're also investing in Team Drive's organizational features. To refresh your guys' memory, Team Drives is our enterprise solution for sharing and storage. And launching now, you can hide Team Drives. So if you've got a long list of Team Drives, you can select a subset of those drives and hide them super easily. You can still search for the content within those drives. And if you need to unhide them, that's very easy to do as well. In development, targeted for 2019, are shortcuts. So you'll be able to add pointers to files and folders, which can really help create those associations between Team Drives. And finally, we know it's been a long time coming. In development, subfolder sharing is directional for 2019. I'm sure some of you in this room are thinking, oh, for God's sake, why have you not just launched this feature already? I want to tell you why. We are in the midst of developing the new infrastructure for Drive, which will make Drive faster, more reliable, and provide benefits like greater visibility into the kind of activity that's going on in Drive. It's really the next generation, and it's going to be good for all of us. It's a big project, and it has to be completed before we can launch subfolder sharing. I want to assure you that it's a top priority. We have scores of engineers who are working on that, and as soon as that is done, we'll be rolling out subfolder sharing. So stay tuned for us for more information on subfolder sharing. It's coming. I promise it's coming. So all of those features, to me, are about making sure Drive actually succeeds in becoming that neural hub for all of your content, so that then you can start to deploy some really transformative features and functionalities. And I think automated document classification is one of those. Airbus has this problem at scale, and you know how much Google likes a scaled problem. I would like to invite Andrew back to the stage to talk to us about how they're tackling this problem.
Thanks again.
Oh.
So,
Here you.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers. So, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of regulation, a lot of concern. Internally, we need to actually be very careful with the type of documents we've got. We deal with everything from personal data through to export control data through to military data. And, we operate in a number of countries where a lot of those countries have different rules, regulations about what we can do, what we can't do with data. So one of the things we have to do as we start thinking about cloud is be very much in line with all the legislation, all the regulation, and all the external concerns, pressures that we get in terms of how we manage our data. So today we've had that problem has been resolved by the fact that we've had on-premise storage. We have all the documents stored inside our own data center. But as we start looking to cloud, we introduce potential challenges around how do we control the data, how do we make sure that we're not putting anything into the cloud that we shouldn't be, and that anything that goes into cloud is protected in the way that we need to do that. So one of the solutions we're progressing very much with Google at the moment is around the use of artificial intelligence to actually help us both with the migration of the data and also with the ongoing classification. So if I think about migration, we've talked about a lot of that data. We have a lot of different levels of metadata information about those. We know who the people are that have been working on the data, the type of information is contained within the documents. But as we start moving things to cloud, we need to sift through anything between 1 and 2 billion documents to make sure that we're not putting anything in that potentially causes a breach, an issue for Airbus, or any kind of sort of enabling thing on terms of the documents. We also want to be able to, as we bring things across, be very careful about how we store things so that we can find them again. Search capable. We want to be able to surface those documents. So we don't want to just take a whole wodge of documents and bring them in, but we actually want to start classifying, managing those, applying metadata. So this is where we feel that artificial intelligence and the training around that is going to be absolutely invaluable to us. And we've started already looking at options to do that, and it's looking very promising. The second for us is then classification. So as I mentioned before, as we then create a document, we want to be able to classify it. But we don't want the dependency to be on the individual within our organization, because we all know that people make mistakes, or people can do things, or there's bad intentions or good intentions around different things around documents. So we also see the use of machine learning, the use of artificial intelligence tools as being absolutely key embedded into G Suite. So that as we look to create a document or send an email, we then tag. We can then run that through artificial intelligence to then either prompt the user that this was potentially misclassified. Maybe actually we can see that the document's an engineering document, and then it prompts for certain types of metadata. So this to us is going to be the absolute key for how do we manage this volume of data in the future. So it's a key thing we're progressing now, and we're very excited about where we've been going so far with Google on this, and using tools such as TensorFlow. It's machine learning's been mentioned a few times, so I'm just mentioning it again, but it's a great thing. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. So we're down to Streamline. Just all we have to do now is streamline thousands of workflows. It should be no problem. After we've moved 1 billion documents, this is easy. When we think about workflows, we think they should have the same principles that Drive has in general, which it should be simple and delightful to use. They should be tailored to the unique needs of your organization, and they should be smart, surfacing only those moments that are really valuable for human interaction, and let's keep the rest under the hood and do that in an automated fashion. We've invested here. We're building an approvals feature, which will be available in beta in June. This is our quick, intuitive, super light workflow within Drive. We know that approvals is the foundation of so many business processes. So we wanted to make sure that that was just really easy for all Drive users. But that's just the beginning, because there are complex, unique workflow needs. And to meet those, we announced last week that our partners, our best-in-class workflow partners, support new workflows in the right-hand panel in Drive. So DocuSign, K2, and Nintex can complete complex workflows in the right-hand panel in Drive. And I'm going to invite them up to stage to show you what they can do. First, we've got Jerome Levadoux, VP of Products and Experience from DocuSign.
Thank you. So give me a second to plug in here. Great. So DocuSign was started about 15 years ago with one purpose, which is to simplify a very complex process that is very tedious for many companies, which is to get documents signed. It's a process that, talking about becoming digital, has been paper-based for, and is today largely still paper-based in many companies, where if I want somebody else to sign a document, I first send them the document. Sometimes it's paper, or sometimes I email it to them. They then have to print it, sign it, scan it back, or maybe send it to the next signer. And this process can be very tedious and take a long time. So DocuSign was created with the purpose of turning that into a digital process that can complete in minutes instead of days or sometimes weeks. And DocuSign is now the global leader in e-signature. We have about 500,000 paying customers and hundreds of millions of freemium customers globally. Now, as we worked with our customers, we also realized that actually signature sits in the middle of a very complex workflow that starts when people have to prepare a document. Typically, they need to edit a document. They may need to get it approved by a few people. Maybe sometimes they redline the document. Then they send it for signature, and after signing, they need to get the document back. Oftentimes, they read the document. They do some data processing and typing into another system, and ultimately need to sign that document over a long period of time. This whole process is what we call system of agreements, right? And every company has developed complex system of agreements for different processes in HR, sales, procurement, legal, etc. So our vision is that in the future, DocuSign can be at the center of the system of agreement to help to digitize the entire process and not just the signature. Now, one thing that's important, obviously, is that not the entire process happens in DocuSign. So if I take here the example of an HR professional trying to onboard an employee, typically they may start in Google Drive or Google Docs. They are editing an offer letter. And once they're done editing the offer letter, they need to get this letter reviewed maybe by legal or approved by the hiring manager. And once that's approved, then they send it via DocuSign for signature. Right? So as you can see, this process starts in Google Drive and then goes to DocuSign, and then ultimately, once the document comes back, you want it back in your Google Drive where the HR professional works. And so there's a back and forth between the two. So that's why we developed our integration with Google Drive several years ago. Now, the benefits of this are obvious. So just taking the HR example here, it's a much faster process. Typically, when you send a document in the traditional way, it can take days to sign it. With DocuSign, many documents are signed within minutes. Actually, 50% of the documents that are DocuSign are DocuSign in less than an hour, and 80% are DocuSign in less than a day. So if you're a HR person trying to hire employees, it's very valuable. It saves also energy and cost. And obviously, you have now a complete process which is trackable. And obviously, this is true for HR. It's true for many other functions that use DocuSign as well. So let's switch to a quick demo to see how this works. So here, I'm now a salesperson, and I am in my Google Drive. I have prepared a purchase agreement that I want to send to my customer. So with our integration, it's very easy. I only need to select the purchase agreement. And with our sidebar integration, I can just click on the little DocuSign logo, and now log into my DocuSign account. And now appears on the right-hand side the DocuSign add-on to the sidebar. And so I can here select who needs to sign. In this case, I will sign as the sender, and other people need to sign outside my organization. I can now configure my document and review the document before I send it. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that we have placed automatically some tags, a signature tag and a date sign, in the right location in the document. And that's done through our partnership with Google. We also have a partnership with Google in terms of machine learning and Google's Vision API, where we basically automatically scan the document and we're able to identify where the right interaction fields are present. And so we are able to automatically digitize the document into an interactive document. So with a single click now, I've sent the document. Once the document is signed, it will basically be written back into my Google Drive, so the completed version of the agreement will be saved there. So let's go back to the slides. Okay, so this is only one of many integrations we have with Google. We've been a partner with Google for many years. We have an award-winning Android app, so if you don't have it on your phone, make sure you download it. It allows you to sign from anywhere and scan documents and sign them. And we have integration with Google Chrome, Google Docs, Drive, and Gmail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. All right, we're going to get the next demo up while I do a quick introduction. We've got Anthony Petro and Jason Trent here who are going to walk us through how they can use Google machine learning to automate loan approval. And then I'll go here this time.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Erika. We appreciate that. Thanks very much, guys. So we're K2. We're going to talk a little bit about some extended workflow capabilities that are going to be shipping in Google Drive very shortly. And as Erika and Jerome both mentioned, the need for process automation across the ECM, but specifically in G Suite, is real. We talked to a lot of customers that have that need today. And we believe that K2 is a great platform to help kind of satisfy a lot of those particular needs. We've got a lot of customers in our space where they rely upon K2 to provide the ability to automate millions of processes within their instances every single day. Now, if you're not familiar with us, K2 is a leader in the business process app space, where we focus on providing tooling for both technical and less technical users that we call citizen developers, so that they can design business apps and automate their business processes that span human interaction, integration with AI and ML systems, as well as various different systems that they have within their organization. So let's go ahead and jump over into the demo, and I'll give you guys a sense of kind of one of the things we're going to start looking at today. What you can see here is our process design canvas. And so this is a rich, interactive process design canvas that allows these citizen developers the ability to go and drag and drop and configure activities to model out their process. And not only are they modeling the process here, but they're also running it on top of our platform, allowing them to go and integrate, as I mentioned earlier, into various different line of business systems, regardless if those are on-prem or in the cloud. Tying into advanced AI and ML capabilities on top of the Google Cloud Platform, and integrating into other systems that they may have. In this particular example today, we're actually looking at a loan pre-approval process. And so the situation here is that we have Laura, who happens to be a customer, and she needs to go and figure out if she can be approved to go ahead and make a fairly big purchase, which is a new home for her and her family. Before she goes through that process, though, she wants to make sure that she can get funding from her lender. And so in the process we're about to see, we'll actually go and have her submit a form, which will kick off the workflow process. And one of the first things that's going to happen is we're going to go and actually take this wealth of information that's provided by Laura and match that up with historical loan information and pass that into machine learning in Google to help us make decisions and outcomes and figure out if we actually need to go and route this task to a human, or if we can action it automatically and help reduce some of the load that Denalix Bank, which is our company, has within their human capital today. After we make that decision within ML, we'll actually go and route that task to a user if the model tells us that that's something that we should do. And within that task, we're going to act as Erika, who's the opportunity to go and interact with that in multiple different experiences. So that could be on her mobile device, that could be in mail, or that could actually be via the Google Suite add-on that we have that surfaces up task information directly within Drive. After Eliza's taken that decision, the last thing we can do is we need to go and get this document signed because it is a pre-approval letter. We're actually going to integrate with our friends over at DocuSign. We'll be routing that to Laura for her signature and then returning that back into Google Drive. So with that, let's actually just jump over to the demo and get started. Now what you're seeing here is Laura filling out a Google form. The great thing about K2 is we have a very flexible forms integration strategy. So we have our own forms technology that allows you to build rich and dynamic and interactive forms that look great on any type of device, be it big tablet or desktop or even mobile device. But if we work with an organization that has their own form strategy, we're happy to integrate in that as well. Laura's filling out a lot of different information here, and all of this information is going to be utilized within the process. We're actually, after the form is saved, it's going to be writing that back to Google Sheets, and because of our native integration with Google, we can use that information, again, to pass that over to the model to figure out, without having to involve a human, what should we do with this particular process. The last thing that Laura is going to do is she's going to go and upload a driver's license, I believe, from her Google Drive and attach that so that the loan approval can actually look at that and validate that's who she is as we move through the process. So with that, she's going to go ahead and submit it, and we'll jump actually over into a different experience. What you're seeing here looks very similar to what I just showed you in that design canvas, but we actually call this K2 view flow. This is a visualization of the process, and it gives users insights into exactly where they're at within the execution of this process. You can see that we've kicked the form off. We've passed over the data that we collected from Laura's submittal form into the model, and the model's made a decision that we actually do need to go and involve a loan originator, or loan approver rather, to review this. So we're going to jump over. Now we're actually running as a different user by the name of Eliza. And as I mentioned earlier, Eliza can get this task anywhere. She happens to be getting it in her email system. And you'll notice there that within the customized email, we're surfacing up a couple different pieces of information. First of all, you'll see that we give all the information that was collected in that form. So any piece of information that's related to the process or even exists in different systems, we can integrate and pull right into the process. We're also going and giving her a sense of, why does she have this task? So you can see the very last column is that focus around the ML scoring, right? It's a very high degree score that tells us that the outcome that we should take is assign it to her. And the last thing that she can do, she clicks on that link, is actually go and open up the task directly. Now, she could have actioned this in email, she could have actioned this on a mobile device, but she wanted to go and validate the content or the assets that were uploaded as part of this process. In this particular case, she jumps right into Google Drive. She opens up Laura's driver's license there. She can validate, yep, that actually looks like that's who it is. And then she goes and she opens up the K2 add-on for G Suite. What that does is that goes and figures out who she is and pulls over the task information that's relevant to this particular process, that's tied to that particular driver's license in this case. She said she can see all the information, as I mentioned earlier, where again, we're surfacing that all up into the add-on as well. So she goes to one single spot to get all of her work done. She doesn't have to jump around from system to system to system. In this case, she's going to go ahead, and I think she already went ahead and validated that and said, yep, that's exactly who we want to. And with that, we've gone and we've really quickly kind of showed you how we can go in and, with the help of Google and K2, Denalix Bank was able to go and build out this pre-approval loan process very, very quickly. Tying into multiple different systems for credit scoring, tying into advanced AI and ML capabilities on top of Google Cloud to make decisions, and then routing tasks to the right people at the right time. With that, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. That was great. All right, can we go back to the slides, please? All right, we did the demo. So last but certainly not least, we have Brad Orluk, Strategic Alliances Manager from Nintex, who's going to walk us through streamlining contract lifecycle management.
All right, thank you, Erika. All right, well, since we're in a theater, in a world of pure chaos and workflow madness, prepare to be dazzled, right? So what I'd really like to talk to you about today is what Nintex brings to the cloud. And what it really does is it makes things like human-centric workflow process, something that's accessible to both developers, but it's easy enough for even line of business users to work with as well. And we really cover the entire process stack, if you will, inside of organizations, because we cover everything from process management and mapping to automation with powerful advanced workflow and RPA bots. And we also do things like process optimization on the back end. So again, really covering the process spectrum. And we've been working closely with the Google Cloud team to bring our capabilities to Google and Drive. So what I'm going to take you through briefly is a non-disclosure agreement type of process. So what will essentially happen here is I'm going to play the role of two different individuals. Someone inside of my fictitious Subfolder real estate organization who's going to fill out a responsive form. We're going to generate that document from a template that's stored inside of Drive. Then we're going to send it out for an e-signature using Nintex Sign, which is powered by Adobe. And then behind the scenes, we're going to then store that back into Drive and then put data into Salesforce, spin up some things in Slack. So lots of different moving parts, but I'm going to take you through all of that. So, time for the demo. So All right, so what you're seeing here is my fictitious real estate organization, and as one Richard Rowe who works for Subfolder, I could go through and fill out a form to capture my customer data to create this non-disclosure agreement. Now, again, we're pretty agnostic when it comes to forms capability. We can certainly take data from anywhere. You can call our workflows as REST endpoints, so very flexible. In this case, though, I chose to build out a form using Nintex responsive forms. And it's all well and good that I can do this inside of a browser, but let's be honest, how do most people like to work nowadays with these things, right? So what I did was using our framework for building out custom mobile applications, and again, this is all inclusive inside the product. Oops, hopefully we can blow this up. All right, so what you're seeing here is a custom mobile application that I built out just for the demonstration. So Richard can go in here, view all of his tasks on the go, do all those great things. I can even look at that template that's stored inside of Drive right outside the mobile device while I'm at lunch with my client. But in this case, again, I'm sitting with the client in the field. I'm gonna go in and fill out that form. So in this case, again, leveraging whether we're on an iOS device or an Android device, we can consume these either way, these custom mobile applications. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill out some cursory information. For the sake of the demo, I'm also not populating all of my fields, or I've already pre-populated them to save us a little bit of time. So again, just some information about my customer. And notice I'm doing things like sequentially filling this out. Right here, this is going to be follow, and then again, all the other information about me is stored inside the form, and I'll hit next. The reason, it'll say top secret Google Cloud stuff, naturally, right? So we'll hit next. Last thing, length of the agreement looks great, oops, and I'll simply hit submit. Now, I want to call your attention to something real quickly about our application here is this outbox concept. So you can actually use us completely offline, zero code again, so it just naturally knows whether you're online or offline, so your tasks and forms are cached on the device. So we have a lot of Fortune 500s who use this in the field to revolutionize how they go to market. Now, behind the scenes, what's happening is we're capturing that data from the form. We're actually instantiating a workflow behind the scenes. So we're generating that non-disclosure agreement. We're doing things like capturing all of that data and into variables and able to route that to whatever we need. So all those things can just magically happen in the background. Now, outside of actually taking you through the entire process, where we go through and we sign the document and all those things, it's all well and good, pretty straightforward. But how did we do it? How do we build this? This is the Nintex Workflow Cloud Design Canvas. So this is the workflow process. If I want to go in here, again, as a developer or as a line of business owner, I can go in, simply open this up and say, you know what? I've decided that I need to have something like a signature control inside of here. And I can easily just grab it, drop it into my form, and then quickly go up to a preview. And again, all instantaneous, and it's automagic. We, again, just like Google, like to delight our customers. So I'm not using the touch screen right here, so we'll just throw something in, and again, done. That's simple. To make a change inside of my form design, I'll go back to my workflow. Now, if I also have occasion to use something like my friends over at DocuSign's capability, we can certainly do that as well. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to store some documents or get a signature with DocuSign. And this is as simple as it is to go ahead and adjust my workflow and start changing things. And notice, again, simple drag and drop experience, making it all nice and easy, and just simply configuration dialogues. And it makes things like cognitive services something that average human beings inside of your organization could take advantage of, because maybe Google Translate is something that I want to use before I send that NDA out because I'm working with Japanese clients. I can easily drag and drop an action, and you can build these using our extensions framework. That's all open API under the covers. So again, inside, outside the firewall, again, process. That's what Nintex does. So thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thanks, Brad. All right, back to the slides. I hope everyone appreciates that. That was a lot of points of failure for live demos, and I think everybody did great. I'm relieved. Okay, we're going to wrap with some security announcements because we know that keeping your data safe really, really matters. And this is just a taste of some of what we have cooking and what we have already launched. So again, find us if you need more information. We're developing advanced data loss protection rules for Drive. This is targeted for launch in 2019. So if you're familiar with our data loss protection, what this does is it lets you assign rules that say, if a document says privileged and confidential, treat it one way. If it has social security numbers, don't let it go outside the organization, that kind of stuff. We're deepening that, so you can block download, copy, and print capabilities as well, based on those DLP rules. We're also developing data exfiltration protection for iOS devices. So what this does is help prevent the leakage of corporate data to personal accounts on iPhone devices. So just a taste of the stuff that we've got in the works. We're working hard to untangle the problems of ECM and deliver on the promise of a modern content platform by really paying attention to the key requirements that major enterprises like Airbus have. Cleaner metadata, interoperability with Microsoft, better search and organization, automated document classification, and streamlining thousands of workflows. One last quick comment, making sure that everyone in this room is aware that you can now purchase Drive for Enterprise independent of the rest of the G Suite. So if you're thinking about transitioning to Google products, but you're not ready to give up Outlook, not ready to give up you don't want to move to Calendar, there's a way to start moving into a modern content platform using just Drive plus Docs plus all of those top-tier enterprise security features, identity features, and admin functionalities. So more information there.